We gotta look up the Pabst distributors in the area. I don't know if we can call them tonight. Shoot. It might be Monday before anyone would answer the phone. She held the book very close to her face, and even so squinted as she tried to find the right part of the listings. Can we get more light in here, huh? I flicked on more lights, but took the book from her hands when I saw her continuing to squint. Your eyes that bad? I asked. She grinned, shakily. How would I know? Maybe it's just an effect of being new in the body and of having been farsighted for 30 years. I can see you fine enough, but little stuff, like printing, just kind of blurs out or breaks up or something. She hadn't quite told the truth, and something new bothered her. She bit a nail and stared at it while I made up my mind not to press this issue at this time. I found the listing of the Pabst distributorship and noted that their address was in Los Angeles, not too far from downtown. I tried the number, but got a recording about business hours. At this hour of the evening, it wouldn't be that long of a drive. What you thinking? She asked around another bitten-off nail. Don't do that, I said. Do what? Bite your nails, it is really unbecoming. She blushed, but put her hands together in her lap for a moment, before changing position and pulling her legs under her. Get your feet off my couch, you've got mud on your shoes, I said, without really thinking about it. Yes, sir. She straightened up, put her feet back on the floor, and waved her hands around vaguely. What? What were we doing? Then she giggled. I called you sir. Maybe you had better practice it. She seemed to decide not to giggle again. Kelly, are you aware of what you've been doing for the last few minutes? Maybe longer? She started, then began again. I've been trying to remember things, not George Kelly things, Esperanza things, you know? I nodded. It's funny. I can almost know something and then it sort of slips away. Huh? I think Hope may be my last name. Her last name. His last name. She trailed off and stared at the toes of her sneaks. Why would a kid do this? Run away? You sure it was a Pabst truck? I asked. Uh-huh. I saw the emblem, the blue ribbon. I worked in Milwaukee for the ball team. Publicity. She didn't name the team. It was probably the Braves when they were there. I guess the obvious, huh? The obvious? Reason for running away. Did you see the name Pabst on the truck? No, I don't know. Kelly? I asked her bluntly. Can you not read now? Is that it? I saw the trouble you had with the phone book, but you don't act that blind otherwise. She shook her head. I can read. Just maybe not that well. She sniffled. Great. I'm a queer and a retard. I couldn't use the phone book because the letters kept breaking up into little pieces. Maybe I'm dyslexic. I sighed and rubbed my forehead. Did the trouble with reading start when you started trying to remember? Remember things about Hope's life? She shrugged. I don't know, maybe. I stood up and fetched her one of my light jackets. Let's go. We're going to drive over to the Pabst distributors and see if we can find that trucker. Down in the car? Kelly asked. Can I turn on the radio? I nodded. The rain wasn't falling here, but we might get a few sprinkles. I figured she would put it on a news station. Somehow she found Shania Twain singing, Man, I Feel Like a Woman. She grinned at me and I smiled. After that song, she found another station that didn't play too much hip-hop. Cool! Backstreet Boys, she said. I didn't feel sure whose tastes ran parallel, mine and George Kelly's, or mine and Kelly Hope's. But we listened to the groove and felt pretty good about sharing it. I wasn't familiar with the band, but they had a nice sound. The Pabst distributor yard was open, trucks loading, and we stopped to talk with the yard supervisor. You sure it was a Pabst truck? We don't run that far north from this yard, and our long-distance stuff comes in by train. I could see it in Kelly's face. She was no longer sure of the identity of the truck. We trudged back to the car and sat listening to TLC. I wondered again if I was somehow being had. Maybe just had for an evening's company and a place to sleep. Not all cons are for a big score, and the little con is a fact of urban life. But how could she have faked all the knowledge of sports, and things that happened before she was born? Before I was born in some cases. especially if she couldn't read. And now that idea started making me suspicious again. I didn't want to disbelieve her story, but the bit with the beer truck upset my willing suspension of distrust. I don't know how long it's been since I listened to Top 40, she said. I sighed and decided to play along a little more. Me either. I had the impression music went into the toilet in the early 90s. Don't like rap or hip-hop? I shook my head. Don't say anything, I warned. It's all right. I don't care much for some of the new stuff either. What am I saying? She laughed. I didn't comment. Remember Alan Freed? She asked after a bit. No. Actually, I did. Sort of. I had done some research on the roots of modern music for a college paper. Neither do I. Not so much as I think I should anyway. Early rock and roll DJ. Some say he coined the name rock and roll, and that is all I remember about him. Seems a shame. Like it might have been important to me once. She bit her lip. She was weirding on me again. I'm positive that truck had a blue ribbon on it, she said with a little sideways look at me. Honest. You know, it's just like so clear in my, what do you call it, in my mind's eye. While she listened to Ricky Martin and Alanis Morissette, I walked back to the dispatcher's shack and talked to the man there. Blue Ribbon Freight, he said after a bit of thought, and found the address for me in his phone book. You're shitting me, she said when I got back to the car to tell her. Kelly, I said. Sorry, I meant no kidding. She grinned, then burst into happy giggles. Her shoulders and hands moved to the music in an unconscious attempt to dance while sitting down. You think? Maybe. And maybe you are beginning to lose it, George Kelly. Or maybe you have been having me on all this time, girl. No use wondering what we would find at Blue Ribbon Freight. We would be there soon enough. The radio made it unnecessary to talk while we drove the short miles to the other side of downtown. Kelly jumped from the car almost before it stopped rolling. She sprinted across the blacktop to where a gray and violet tractor sat, a light in a tiny window indicating that someone was inside the sleeper cab. She stopped halfway there to turn and wave back at me, shouting, It's him! Ernesto! He picked me up outside Martinez. By the time I got there, she had beat on the door and attracted the attention of the person or persons inside. A sleepy-eyed man in gray slacks and one of those string-type t-shirts looked at her from the cab door. Esperanza? I heard him ask. She laughed. You called me that. Yeah, it's me. He smiled. You left your stuff. You were having a bad trip, maybe. I told you no drugs in my truck. He shook his finger at her, but he still smiled. When he saw me, his face changed. This is my friend Walter. Ernest Walter Ernesto, Kelly said. I tried to look innocuous and smiled at him. I didn't want him to think badly of me. I wait for you so long I get docked for being late. He scolded her, after deciding that he didn't want to know anything further about our relationship. Who is it, Ernie? You got a draft coming in that cab, a female voice from inside the tractor complained. I get you stuff, said Ernesto, and disappeared into the cab, closing the door. Lot lizard, said Kelly. What? Trucker's whore, she explained tersely, though I suppose I should be careful what I call anyone else who knows what I've been doing since I ran away. I pondered the way she had used pronouns in that statement. It didn't actually make me dizzy, but the effect was similar. Ernesto reappeared with a burgundy backpack and a denim jacket. You take care of yourself, Hopi, he said. Then he added in Spanish, as if that made the caution doubly strong. Cuidado, Esperanza. He smiled at her. My stuff, Kelly Hope Esperanza sniffed. Thank you, Ernesto. She clutched the bag to her with tears in her eyes. Adios, he said, and closed the cab door, just as his companion for the evening began complaining again about the draft. We walked back to my car in silence. She slipped the coat on and felt in the pockets before producing some black-rimmed glasses. She put them on and grinned. Hey, I can see. Dang, these eyes are worse than I thought. The glasses changed her face considerably. For one thing, they were obviously boys' glasses, and for two others, they were both cheap and thick-lensed. The sort of glasses someone on a budget or depending on charity ends up with. She looked back toward the tractor cab and grinned. I damn near kissed him. Chapter 4. I laughed. A snort, really. Then we were both chuckling as we got into my car and sat looking at each other. The glasses failed to make her look like a boy, at least to my mind. She blushed, and I realized that I might have been staring at her. "You are better looking than I thought," she teased. I snorted again. "Any ID there, something to tell us what your name really is?" She reached into the backpack, produced a small black purse that seemed to embarrass her further. Inside the purse, she found a pocketbook, and in that, a student ID for Terrence Harper Hope. She read the name out loud. Then she said, "My folks called me Terry." "You remember that now?" I asked. I looked at the picture, a serious-looking, slightly younger version of the face Kelly wore now, at an age when long, tousled hair is all that is needed to achieve androgyny. The little box for sex had an M in it. She nodded. I remember a little bit. She read more from the ID. "This is for Tustin Unified High School. That's down in Orange County." The last said a little wonderingly, "She might just as well have come from Canada or New York City." "It says I'm a 10th grader, but it's 2 years old. And my birthday was..." "Son of Agan, I got the same birthday. I'm just 49 years younger." Tears leaked out again and her glasses seemed to fog up. She pulled them off and wiped her face. "Terry?" I said quietly. Every time a real chance for confirmation of her story came up, that part checked out. The picture on the ID did look like her, but couldn't it have been of a brother? She bit her lip and smiled at me. "Keep calling me Kelly, will ya? Probably no one else in this life ever will again." I couldn't bear to think of hurting her by saying anything about my doubts, so I just nodded. Still playing along, still feeling vaguely guilty about doing so, I said, "Kelly, what do you want to do? I have computers at home. If your folks still live in Tustin or Orange County, I may be able to find their address and phone number on the internet." I might as well have sandbagged her. She slumped in the seat and trembled. The glasses fell from her hand and landed in the floorboards. Neither of us made a move to retrieve them immediately. "I guess it isn't fair to them. They don't know where I am, where Terry is." "Huh?" "No, but that is for you to decide. From the ID, it looks like you really are 18, by about 3 months. I smiled. "So you are an adult, and I really can't presume to tell you what you have to do." Was she? I wanted to believe that at least. "Let's go back to your place, huh?" she said. Retrieving the boyish glasses from the floor, she replaced them in her coat pocket. Perhaps not wearing them had become a habit of the body. Perhaps they weren't really hers, and just a pair that she had found that fixed her eyes well enough. Driving back, I surprised myself by discovering that I was happy, and that I did believe her, the whole thing. I believed it all once more, as I had done in the rainy parking lot when she had blurted out the story. I tried to figure out why believing her made me happy. I knew I felt happy for her. She knew now what her name was. She had an identity, and that was good. But it took most of the drive back before I realized that part of my happiness was based on the fact that she was 18, of a legal age. Legal age for what? I didn't want to think about too much. She by turns played with the radio and stared out the windows and poked idly around in the backpack. Once she produced a white plastic pill bottle, the labels both in English and Spanish. She looked at the bottle, felt idly of one of her breasts, and replaced it in the backpack without opening it or getting out her glasses to read the label. "You're not dyslexic, at least," I said at one point. She shook her head. "No, just half blind." She grinned. "And those are the awfulest glasses I have ever seen. Was I in some prison where I got them?" Neither of us tried to answer that. Some sort of juvenile lockup or foster care did seem likely if Terry had been, an incorrigible runaway. Back at the apartment, Kelly asked if she could bathe and maybe do some laundry. "Sure, I've got my own washer and dryer on the patio outside the kitchen. I'll noodle around on the net and see what I can find." "Find? About Terry Hope?" Catching me completely by surprise, Kelly pulled the t-shirt she had been wearing off over her head. Her adolescent breasts looked as startled as I felt, the little nipples popping out. "Sorry," she muttered. As she caught me staring and turning her back, she hurried into the bathroom, taking her backpack along. "Sorry. Oh, hell. Sorry. But I heard her giggling as the bathroom door closed. I shook my head and reminded my libido, she's a boy. Part of me was unconvinced, or possibly unconcerned. A moment of considering the tax programs I had once worked on seemed to help deflate things. I went into my computer office, the second bedroom of the apartment, and just to give her a little privacy in case she wanted to troop through the house naked while her laundry was being done, I shut the door. I had to move some stuff. I don't think the door had been closed since I put the computers in there. I didn't want to think about her maybe wandering through the house nude, but of course I did. I wondered if she shaved her legs. Probably I hadn't seen any armpit hair in my brief glimpse. Of course, I hadn't been looking for any. I couldn't see myself blush, but I could feel the heat on my face. Just what was I thinking about her? About Terrence Kelly Esperanza Hope? She's a boy, I reminded myself again. Besides being a boy, Kelly was the ghost of a man who had been working for the Milwaukee Braves back about the time I was busy being born. That had to make some kind of difference. And once again it hit me, if I believed her. I had been a rationalist all my life, someone who refused to commit to a belief in the unprovable. But now, well, when confronted with the inexplicable, what does one do? I decided to surf the internet. I'd had enough tortured indecision tonight, find a technical problem and jump in with both feet. I'd dealt with a lot of life's fuzzy questions that way, little one and big ones. With computers, it comes down to on and off, yes and no, the simplest form of black and white. My distraction techniques weren't working too well, and I had barely got started when she knocked softly on the door. I had heard her bare feet slapping in the hallway outside my office just a moment before the knock. "You had a few things in the hamper. I'm gonna wash those too." "'Kay? I don't really have enough to make a full load, just my stuff." "Don't wash the whites with the—" "Please," she interrupted me, "like I've never done laundry before?" I pictured her smiling and rolling her eyes on the other side of the door. "Laundry stuff in the cupboard above the machines," I said. "Where else would it be?" "Duh." She laughed, and soon I heard the kitchen sliding glass door open and close. I grinned at the computer screen. If she wanted to practice domesticity, fine by me. I hate doing laundry. And housework in general, for that matter. If I didn't love living in an orderly place more, my apartment would look like a typical guy's dorm room in a sitcom. So I heard her running feet going back down the hall and into the bathroom. I wondered if she had worn anything onto the back patio. I hoped so, but with the overhanging balconies of the second-floor apartments and the 6-foot redwood fences, she might have risked it. She seemed the sort to take such risks. I wondered if George Kelly had been driving too fast the night he was killed. I checked the daily news files on the web and read George's obituary. Services would be Sunday, I noted. Would Kelly want to go? Sunday would be Halloween, too weird to even think about. I felt guilty again when I realized that I was scanning the obit for facts I could use to check Kelly's story. The birthday listed was the same as the one on the student ID. The name of the wife was Margaret, just as Kelly Hope had said. I noted, too, that George was survived by 2 daughters, Constance and Grace. No last names or ages given. Might one of them be the mother of Terrence Hope? Or of my house guest if she was really a she and not the boy in the picture? I stared at the picture of George Kelly, the one that had run above his column for the last several years. I tried to catch a glimpse of my Kelly in the face, a hint of resemblance. Was there something around the eyes? I finally saved the obit to a file and went to the White Pages listings, unsure of any conclusions so far. What the heck was I doing, thinking of her as my Kelly? I heard the shower running. One nice thing about living in a big apartment building is there is almost always hot water enough for both showers and laundry, if you don't try to do both at 7 a.m. I tried not to picture her soapy young body in the shower. I had been on the internet. I had seen photos of those people called she-males. But the mind's eye picture I had of Kelly did not include such a jarring detail as a superfluous her down parts. In my mind, she was all woman, young and virginal, a newly minted girl. I found 6 families named Hope living in Tustin, 6 with listed telephone numbers anyway, and several dozen more in the towns around Tustin. People might have moved in more than 2 years. I pondered the problem of locating Terry's parents as a means to distract myself from Kelly's presence in my shower. Runaways are usually reported to the police. Perhaps the police would have a record of who Terry's parents were. I couldn't see them just handing it out to someone who called, though, not without getting more involved with finding out who I was and what I knew about Terry Kelly. She spent a long time in the bathroom, and I spent a long time pondering her problems. I even looked up what I could find on laws regarding runaways. Some of it was good news, some bad. If she had ever been in juvenile court, she might be technically still under court supervision until she was 25. Screwy law, that one. But she was 18 now, and an adult for most purposes under the law. Don't think about that too hard. She was certainly old enough to decide if she wanted anything to do with parents who evidently had been unable to deal her as she was, let alone who she had become now that she was haunted by the ghost of George Kelly. I thought about funerals held on Halloween. I'd come back to that again, and the goosebumps of the fear of the unknown had a little war with the shivers of concern I felt for the girl who had stolen a ride. I heard her moving in the kitchen, and then the glass door being opened, and I decided that she must be loading the dryer. I wondered what she had found to wear, something of her own or something of mine. I tried not to picture what she would look like with one of my size 17 long-sleeve white shirts draped on her slender body falling almost long enough to be a dress. If a transvestite wears men's clothes, is it crossdressing? Just for the heck of it, I looked up court cases regarding ghosts and claims of life after death, reincarnation and the like. There was too damn much of it to be believed, so to speak. She knocked softly again. I made coffee. Do you want it in there or out here? I hate drinking coffee at the computer. I always drink too much, don't enjoy it, and end up with acid stomach. And then there are always spills. But I probably drink at least a pot a day sitting right where I was sitting just then. Bring it on in. I tried not to anticipate how she might be dressed. The door opened and she came in. Plastic coffee butler dangling from one hand and 2 thick ceramic mugs from the other. She wore one of my robes, the orange one my sister Beth had bought me for Christmas nearly 2 years ago. Beth lives in Florida and hasn't seen me in years, and thinks of me still as her teenage brother, I guess. She also thinks of me as someone who would wear orange, apparently. On Kelly, it looked good. The robe, much too tight for me in the shoulders and tending to blare open at the waist, hung loosely from Kelly's narrower frame and nearly went twice around her slender middle. The color contrasted with the green towel she had wrapped turban-wise around her hair, and somehow this made her eyes appear more green and her skin glow with clean pink health. Her legs flashed beneath the on her mid-calf hem, long and smooth and needing a bit of a tan. She grinned when she realized I was taking it all in. Like the package? She asked, as she sat the cups down and opened the butler. I probably blushed and felt an enormous need to clear my throat and sound really adult and masculine. What do you take in your coffee? She asked innocently. Nothing, just black. Sugar and cream make you fat and sweeteners just taste bad. I have found it so. She poured 2 cups, and I caught myself watching the robe where it lapped over on her chest. No cleavage there. Not really, but the young skin of her neck working over the angles of the clavicle were lovely. You've got good taste in coffee, chock-full o' nuts. She took her cup, smelled the aroma, and smiled. Did you put on your glasses to be sure? She stuck out the tip of her tongue at me. Was she doing these things deliberately? Damn. Come on, nothing else comes in that black and yellow can. I took a sip. It was good. Funny how some people can make bad coffee even with an automatic pot. Blue ribbon coffee, I murmured. She giggled at my jibe, sipped, made a face, and then tried not to cough. Ew, Bitter. How long have you had that can? Since Tuesday, maybe you don't drink coffee. I've been drinking coffee for 50 years. Maybe you don't drink it black? Now? She tried sneaking up on another sip of the stuff. When it hit the back of her tongue, she almost gagged again. Go, Ross. She frowned at the cup as if it were its fault that she didn't like the taste. I laughed. But I like coffee. She frowned at me this time. I know I do. And I want some. Her mouth worked, trying not to pout. Go get some milk and sugar if you really want to have a cup. When I was your age, I drank what my granny called uptown coffee. Half milk and 3 sugars. My age? That broke up the incipient pout with another frown, this one puzzled. I remember, my granny called it Boston coffee. Didn't you say milk and sugar will make you fat? Her mood had flipped again, back to teasing. You could stand a little more patting here and there? She set the cup down carefully and stood up. You just want to make me fat, she accused playfully. And I just wanted to use the line about liking my men the way I like my coffee. Her hand flew to her mouth and her face turned very red. I snorted. In that case, you had best put a little coffee in your milk instead of the other way around. Her wise-ass grin widened as she moved the hand up to push the towel off her forehead. Why? You think you're the man I'm talking about liking? Are you trying to flirt with me or just get my goat? She fiddled with the towel, either loosening it or tightening it, and looked thoughtful. I don't know. Just having fun, I guess. Better be careful, girl. Fun like that might get you in trouble. Not me. I'm a boy, remember? Thank you for tuning in to this latest installment of our story. As the plot thickens, and the mysteries around Kelly, or should we say Terry, deepen, we're left wondering about her true identity and the mysterious circumstances she's caught in. If you're as curious as we are to see where this intriguing journey takes us, don't hesitate to visit our Patreon page for early access to the next chapter. Your support helps keep this captivating story unfolding. Stay with us as we continue to unravel the complexities of Kelly's, or Terry's, life.